Welcoming you to a life of awareness, the Presence Project is excited for you to join us for today's podcast with your host, Paul Kerzner.
Hello and welcome to episode 26 of Are You Being Present? My name is Paul Kerzner. I want to welcome you to the present moment. I want to welcome you to the here and now, and I want to thank you wholeheartedly, sincerely, and deeply for joining me in this beautiful present moment. The title and topic for today's podcast is Awakening to Truth with Presence, and it is my honor to welcome back Daniel Hirtz to the podcast. Daniel, welcome.
Hey, Paul.
You know, I asked Daniel to come back because I felt that it was time to continue our conversation more interactively. You know, I've had some very deep conversations with Daniel, and I thought it would be really helpful and advantageous for the audience to listen, to learn, and to take in some really important pieces of information now more than ever. You know, we're definitely living in a transformational time period. And, you know, the conversation needs to continue about presence, but more so awakening that is taking place or that needs to take place. So, Daniel, I know we spoke a little bit about, you know, the awakening and truth and presence and all the things that it entails. I'd love to get some of your perspectives and perceptions so that we can kind of dig a little bit deeper.
Okay. Well, let me start like this. Awakening. And this is also speaking, I have Reggie Ray in my head, if anybody wants to check him out, Dharma Ocean. He uses the term waken down, and that really shook me up when I heard it, because I feel like that. You know, I've always been a very physical person. I don't like the idea that we exclude the body. That spirituality has to do with us sort of waking up, waking out, you know, going up and just sort of leaving, right? But a true awakening to the truth of our existence cannot be something where we cut the realms conveniently into slices that we say, okay, I like that slice and I exclude that other slice. And what we do consistently, even with the yoga movement that obviously deals with hatha yoga and physical exercise and all that, but you can even do that still with an inner attitude that doesn't really include the body in the sense of all of the body, the complete sensation of everything that resides in the body. And like in our conversation before, I said you can stretch a muscle to make it feel good again, right? But can you find the reasons why it was tight to begin with, and why it's always retightening so quickly after you're done with your exercise? So if we dig deeper into that, we find roots for our automatic behaviors that lie outside, oftentimes way outside of our awareness and way outside of our consciousness. And so it can be sort of like a subdued form of being present, where you sort of calm all of that down so you don't feel, you feel as little as possible of it, and you go from the neck up into spirit, and you probably feel great, right? You know, you can even feel some sort of enlightenment, a form of sort of like a mutism, right? You know, you turn off all the noise, and then you have this wonderful quiet space of the mind, right? Maybe with some meditation music in the background, you know? But being alive, turning on all systems of what a human being is, includes something that we have notoriously ignored throughout history. And we've called it dirty, and we're afraid of the forces of sexuality and intimacy and all that, which is the whole body. And from my perspective, the body is the miracle. I mean, the body is an incredible production of this planet that gives us the ability to think, you know, and gives us the ability to reflect about life, because we're humans and so on. So we have this tendency to live in our mind, live into the map, you know, live in ideas. Even the ideas of truth and presence, we can live in the mind like that and not get that the body is always present. You never have a body tomorrow. You have the body now. It cannot go anywhere in the future. It is only always now. The body is the perfect access to the now because it's never in the future. And with that, the breath. The breath is never in the future. You cannot breathe for tomorrow. You have to breathe for now, and every moment you have to take another breath, right? Now, breath is so interesting because you can completely be unaware of it, right? When I tell people I'm a breathing teacher, they say, I don't know, I don't need that, I breathe all the time. Yeah, but you're not aware of it. You don't pay attention to your breath and the depth of what breath actually is. So we can start here, For me, breath was traveling maybe first into my emotions, but ultimately deeper and deeper into my body and the miracle of what the body really is.
So breath work would be a really good step towards awakening then, no?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I mean, you can check into any one of the great traditions of, a form of contemplative spirituality that includes inquiry into our presence here. Sooner or later you will come upon breath and a lot of talk about breath, because breath is what keeps us not only here by observing the breath, but breath from my perspective is the bridge to anything. Any content that you focus on, if you add breath to it, you will increase your intimacy to that content. It could be another person, could be a topic. If you, while you're pondering the topic, you're also breathing consciously, the topic will open up and will widen and will give you a lot more insight through the bridge, And to me, lately, I've been doing this for a long time, conscious breathing and teaching it and do groups and classes and everything. And I feel lately very much, breath is like a bridge into, particularly into our body and into a form of awareness that doesn't leave certain sections dark, Sooner or later, they're going to come to light. So I like that waking down into the guts, waking into the fullness, the totality of being, and not just whatever our mind tells us is convenient.
So if we're talking about awakening to truth, I mean, isn't there a lot of subjectivity to what you determine to be true versus what I determine to be true? I mean, because ultimately this is a very subjective reality. I mean, we do have agreed truths that we collectively abide by in society. But is it awakening to your own truth? Is it awakening to collective truth? I mean, that's the question that comes to mind for me.
Well, yeah, of course. And that's one of the huge philosophical questions in history. I want to make a little roundabout here and talk about some of the philosophers who have determined lots of our Western way of looking at life, that sort of invented objectivism, and with that science and with that modern society that actually excludes subjectivism, right? If you just have an opinion and you're passionate about it, you're easily dismissed by science if you don't use the scientific method and objectify whatever you subjectively feel, right? Now, where are the roots of that? The roots are in the philosophies of Nietzsche, Hegel, Schopenhauer, and those, German clowns, who, I call them clowns because I want to be a little provocative to history, because that history hasn't served us. They have postulated like this cold world that you're thrown out into, and God is dead and everything is machine, and maybe barely the universe comes alive and human beings becomes conscious, but the rest is all just machining, right? Disastrous repercussions for our awareness. And we haven't been like that. We've been, from that time on and before, this is a development of what we so proudly call Western society. And that society has raped this planet in many, many, many ways, If you combine that with a form of monotheism that feels superior to everything else, hey, you got the perfect formula, right?
But isn't the awakening that's taking place right now noticing the destruction and the destructive tendencies of the society that we've been a part of, and now slowly changing it?
Right, of course. And what these guys never could get around is nature. That was their problem. in all their mental, incredibly sophisticated meanderings, which are hard to read and surely incredibly deep and not superficial at all. I'm not saying that. But the simple truth, and we still don't live by those truths. The indigenous people of this country, they always have pointed to those truths. And they're very, very simple, and they're the same for all of us. You can't get around them. Number one, you have to breathe to be here. That's a very simple truth. Everybody has to sort of say, yep, that's true. Well, that truth in itself has a lot of circles around it that go all the way to every crevice in our world. Because in order to breathe, we breathe in stuff that we can't produce. We're still not at that point. The plants, our partners, our friends, they make it for us. They produce that for us. If they would stop producing that, we're gone, and all our philosophies with it. All our subjective truths will be gone. Absolutely meaningless. So if we start there, then just the fact that we have to breathe to be alive will set up a whole different conversation right there. That's not a truth that just is also internally aware. If you use conscious breathing, it's one of the most powerful vehicles. You know, in Sufism they say breath and music. I'm a breath and music kind of guy. These are the two things I'm most passionate about. Right? And you can't get, so that's internally, certainly on a personal spiritual path, very, very powerful. But they're also externally powerful to ponder. For example, you cannot prevent to breathe in the air of your enemies. You may sit across somebody you have a political argument with and you want to be at their throat. They just exhaled and you inhale what they exhaled. And there's nothing you can do about that. Right? You breathe the air of all human beings eventually. Of Muslims and Christians and Hindus and Jews, and you have to. There's nothing you can do about it. We can live in the illusion that this is our land and we can make like a fence around it, but we can't do that with air. There's no fence for air. There's no just our air. In fact, the global pollution gets caught, a big part of it, in the higher spheres of our air body on the Himalayas. And it comes down every year in the winter, I believe. It's in the winter or in the summer, in the winter in northern India, and makes people sick and kills people. It's our little gift. Now, India adds a lot to it too. But it accumulates in one corner of the world because they happen to have the highest mountains. And those people suffer off from what we do. So I always thought that the environment, the world we live in, is a mirror for our inner world, and the other way around. So what do? We still ignore the fact that we are warming up our planet. But the people in Bangladesh, for them, it's reality over the last 10 years for sure. They have lost their land because Bangladesh goes into the ocean very, very gradually. So every year they use meters of land and villages. They literally disappear. So they go to the cities. For them, that's long true. The people on the little small atolls, Maldives and so on, they got to move soon. They're going to be gone. Right? For them, it's real. For us, it's just a mental exercise still. Right? And that's the same thing for our bodies. Gradually, we're tensing up. We live in a society that's so tense that most of us are afraid of each other. Like on a visceral, automatic level, not on the conscious level. I'm not telling anybody here, don't be so afraid. No, you know just like as I do, that we don't have an easy time with embracing strangers and embracing people who are different than us and just assume as a natural sort of like trust in life kind of thing that we're all partners, that we're all on the same planet and that we can start there and that we have so much in common that we don't have to be afraid of each other. No, that's not how we live. Because we have given it away. And so to agree that we don't even know how asleep we are, And that's the provocative point that I want to make, is if you want to wake up to truth, sitting quiet on your ass may not cut it anymore. Because, let's face it, it hasn't made a difference. Just prayer on one side, meditation on the other side. These are the two major forms of our so-called world religions, so to speak. And so what results have they given us?
I mean, to an extent, they have brought about a certain level of inner peace.
A certain amount, yeah.
But you're saying that's not enough.
Well, if the inner peace means that you, in a privileged situation, can sit in your inner peace and you can willfully and effectively ignore the fact that the majority of humanity is falling into poverty and into environmental degradation and into hunger and into disastrous situation for kids and everything. And we allow it to be half of us. It's a huge number. So I'm saying you do the same thing to your body. Half of your body is asleep. Because if it would be awake, you would be outraged over this. And you would use meditation and quieten yourself so that you are strong enough to fight the good fight.
Which is?
Wake everybody up. Connect. Form community. Because this is the other thing. So we have a hard time individually to wake up our system. If you wake up your body feels like an electric powerhouse, right? An awoken body is like Reggie Ray, again, he talks about that they found that every cell is sort of like a parabolic mirror to the universe. We have more cells in our body than there are stars in the known universe. Ponder that for a moment. In a sense, you could say we live in a miraculous environment in our bodies, and we have puny little minds govern over it. Does that remind you of something? We live in this tremendous world that has, for example, produces more food than we need every day. And we throw away 40%. Why? Because we have puny, tiny leaders residing over this. And we allow it, just like we allow to fall asleep in our bodies. Same thing, identical. And in the 60s, some people started to take substances that, by the way, for example, all the psychoactive substances, the hallucinogenic substances that, I'm not talking about opiates and things that get us asleep, but drugs that will never become super popular because we call them drugs, substances, medicine, to the natives, this is medicine, right? To ayahuasca, to the shamans you cannot take ayahuasca and have a good time. It's going to confront you, and it's going to connect you to a universe that is so much bigger that you want to say, stop, I can't handle all of this at once. But we are in the times where we need to start handling that. We have to call together out and say, we got to wake up, not in the sense of waking out, but waking into everything we actually are, and what animals actually are, what plants actually are, what the ocean actually is, what the fish are, what the beauty is we live inside, and we piss on it.
And from my perspective, that's because of a detachment from collective suffering.
Yes.
A detachment from our bodies.
Yes.
And that provides humans with an insulation.
Yes.
Where they can go throughout their lives and pretend there's nothing wrong.
Right.
So if we're talking about awakening to truth, that means we're also awakening to suffering.
Yes.
And at least to an acknowledgement that there is a tremendous amount of it.
Yes.
But then the question is what to do.
Well, what to do? Number one, we got to also formulate a positive outlook. It's sort of like therapy only works if you have something to live up into. Mm-hmm. If you're only going to dig into more and more darkness of yourself, you're not going to do it. Right? And we haven't formulated that message. We haven't talked about beauty. You know, who has the guts in this world to stand up and say, look at this beauty? I mean, if you're actually opening your eyes, you know, to what the forest is or what a river is, if you get quiet enough for a moment, I mean, it's going to open you up and you're going to weep because you realize we're missing it. And that beauty is the container for all the darkness to heal inside of. That's another reason why I like breath, because breath will turn you on. Like deep breathing, like do 10 of them. You're going to feel immediately differently. You feel a tingle in your body. And I say, take a heroic dose of that. You know, get so turned on that it blows you away. That will give you the courage to look into this dark thing that's in your heart or in your gut or in your back or in the persistent pain that you run around with that you always know, the stress that doesn't let you sleep, all that stuff. You know, we have successfully allowed to be a society where we pretend we are okay. But we're not. Most of us are not. You know, why do people choose to continue to eat meat in a world where we, you know, there's one side of the story is how we treat animals. Even if I want to stay away from that, you choose to eat meat that is polluted. Because you're so addicted to meat and you won't let it go because I have to have it, right? And you will go to the extent that you eat the antibiotics, the pesticides, like today it's like beef is so full of sugar because they feed them corn that it will give you an insulin rush or whatever, you know, a sugar rush in your blood, and people can't eat meat anymore that have diabetes. Diabetes shouldn't give you a sugar rush. Meat shouldn't give you. But see, the addiction is so deep that we live in symbols of life and not in life itself.
Again, a disconnection.
Disconnection, that's right. And now, disattachment, hasn't Buddhism taught that? Hasn't many religions taught us that this world is not the real world? And still do, right? Rapture is going to come and then we finally going to be side of God. I'm sorry, I can't deal with that anymore. So basically, if you all believe in that, you say, I don't care about this world. No wonder that we have this outcome. And there's a good number of people who will sacrifice this world for it. And from my perspective, I want to weep when I get present to that. Because it may be that there's alien life on other planets, but we haven't been able to find it. It's certainly not around the corner. And this jewel here seems to me like an incredible opportunity of life to express itself in this incredible biodiversity that we have. And we don't care about it. We don't feel it. And that's the key word, we don't feel.
Yeah, I think that's why the whole pharmaceutical industry, especially for psychotropics, is so... is such a moneymaker because it provides people with an opportunity not to feel, which just perpetuates people not being awake, being asleep, basically, and just going through the motions. You know, but that's where I feel like presence is the first step towards the awakening. It might not be the ultimate awakening.
But it's certainly, it cannot stop. I totally agree with you. In fact, I think, just in my personal knowledge, and I don't know that much. I haven't gone to a million different teachers. I've started on a very sort of, my path always was music and breath, you know. And I do actually, we're going to do next Friday at Phoenix Tribal Nights, we're going to do a drum circle, but I'm into waving breath and song and everything because I know that stuff, you know, and I know how good it feels. So anybody who listens to it, give me half an hour of your time. I show you bliss. I show you a state of being where you feel so relaxed and deeply energized that you feel the confidence that you can look deeper into your being and heal the old pain. And I think that's part of what our job is, those who are care to help the awakening of people, help the presence of it, help the healing that needs to take place, that we show a container, and that we live a connection with each other. We form a form of community that is so vibrant and alive that it becomes an example for what's possible. Because how could people ever make that huge step that come from the darkest corners of our philosophies, that are very trapped in their backwater philosophies? Yeah, I can call them anything I want to, but the truth is they're part of me. That's the truth. They're just as part of me than the animal on the river and the power plant and the oil and all of it, right? I cannot stop somewhere, right? This is like the privilege of the, how should I say, the spirituality of the privileged. Says, oh, the law of attraction, and so if I think right, I get my BMW. Well, wait a second. If that's true, that means you're connected to the universe, and you put out thoughts, and the thoughts come back and bring a result to you, right? So how about the results that you don't like? Oh, you didn't create them? That is superficial, that it stinks. I'm sorry. You either go all the way and you eat that lesson that that what you experience is the results of your thinking, but then include all the results, not just the favorable ones.
Yeah, good, bad, and indifferent. I get that. Yeah.
Everything.
And that's just a matter of taking responsibility.
Exactly.
Not disavowing the negative experiences, which is just a perception anyway. Whether you determine something negative or not, it is an experience.
Well, if you have... If you're born in a region of the U.S. that just lately, and I've seen this article, you're born in a part of the U.S. where Johnson & Johnson has put in C8 into your groundwater for decades, and you drink that water unknowing that it's there, and you drink it for your childhood, and all of a sudden you have a brain tumor. Well, it's not just perception.
No, that's true.
Right? And if your child is born with just one eye or one nostril or deformed, and the reasons has nothing to do with what you thought about or how you are, whatever. It was actually the toxic environment that other people have dumped on you and hid it from you and lied to you about it. That's more than perception.
Yeah.
That's reality that hits us. Yeah. But let me comment on it. You can perceive it in such a way that you can even vote for the people who do this. You can vote your own demise because you're so addicted to your philosophy. You won't let go. That's the deep sickness of humanity. It's ideological conviction that you're not willing to even adjust. And why? Why are you so addicted to it? Because underneath you're so full of pain that you have to hold on to an aggressive body of thoughts that replace access to life, that give you sort of a fake form of access to life. You live in an aggressive philosophy that you put over life itself. You literally pull it over how life actually is for you. And then you eat food and drink stuff that makes you further go numb so you don't feel your body. You feel literally from the neck up. You're in the TV, you're in constant entertainment, Facebook, you don't feel your body.
Detachment.
Yeah, detachment.
This has been a powerful conversation, Daniel. You touched upon a lot of important topics that I think a lot of people willfully neglect because of the sheer pain and suffering attached to them.
Yeah, I have a lot of compassion and empathy with that. That's why it's so important for me to point out that it's incredible how much we know, how incredible people are, what the inventiveness in other corners of humanity is happening right now. It's incredible. The opportunity we have is absolutely mind-blowing. And that's also to say, if you are willing to make the steps to heal yourself, it's not that difficult.
Yeah. And that's a great point to kind of close this on. But that has to be a conscious decision.
It has to be a decision.
And, it has to be a multifaceted approach.
Yeah, and then I like to add, the biggest thing I think is in front of us for all the people that have done this work, maybe for decades. It's time to come to each other and create a culture that's more inviting for those who have a hard time making that decision. We cannot just judge them and say, hey, man, for as long as you don't make the decision, screw you. No, that's not enough. If we know that we're one with them, then we have to care for them even if they don't. It's just like the world, like the animals. They can't do anything. So we can say, oh, yeah, well, then we just don't have animals. No, I don't want to live in a world like that.
Yeah.
Other human beings are like that too. And some of the worst in our society behave the worst. They're the ones who need our help the most.
Yeah. Inclusion, not exclusion. Yeah.
Yes. But intelligent inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Intelligent inclusion means that we don't try to convert them, but that we live such lives that they can look at and say, hey, what are they doing? That looks like fun. That looks like promising. This is like a shining city on the hill. And when they come, we say, hey, come on, sit down, have food, have something good. Take a deep breath, relax. Struggle is over.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Daniel, thank you so much for coming back.
My pleasure.
On the podcast, and I'm sure there'll be another follow-up episode. If people
we have a lot to talk about.
We do. If people want to get a hold of you, in touch with you, how would they find you?
My website is danielhirtz.com, DanielHirtz.com. DanielHirtz.com, and then I try to update it all the time, sometimes falling behind. But you can find, a lot of information. Certainly can get in touch with me through that.
Perfect. Daniel, thank you for joining us again. I want to thank everyone
Paul.
for
Good
listening.
Series. Kudos to you.
I want to welcome everyone back to the present moment.
Thank you for listening to the Are You Being Present podcast, brought to you by the Presence Projects. Remember, you have a choice. Choose to be present.